the 1960s. Now, mind you, where we left off in the 1950s was that queer representation and queer themes were totally different things, right? So we had to find relatability within these queer themes in certain movies like Rebel Without a Cause and All That Heaven Allows, right? So if you want to know more about that, make sure you check out the previous 1950 videos, right? But we're still in this like boiling pot of frustration, right? And regardless, here we are in the 1960s. John F. Kennedy just became president. There was like this new hope in, for Americans everywhere, right? And the Bay of Pigs happened, to all my Cubans out there, right? The Bay of Pigs happened. This is the majority of the reason why most of you are, not going there. not going there. I have washed my hands from that. But then also the Cuban Missile Crisis, speaking of Cubans, right, also happened in the early 1960s, correct? Also, in the early 1960s, we have the assassination of JFK. By the way, for me to get this footage that y'all are seeing, it's the uncensored footage. So let me just say that shit is terrifying. It is scary. Oh my God, that's a lot. It's not for the, it's not for the faint of heart. When people think like, oh, JFK got shot, in the shoulder. No, man, like this was a fat ass bullet going through this man's skull. Literally, you see his skull cave in on itself, flop on itself. I have never seen anything so, like, the face is gone. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God. I feel so sorry for Ms. Jackie Kennedy, because on one hand, you're literally like your faces are just so close to each other, and just next thing you know, it's gone. Like, it's just everything just changes, and it's just and then do you see her on the car? Like, she's on this car. She's on the car. So you can only imagine that the assassination of JFK brought more anxiety into American culture, right? We're already like post-war, like traumatized PTSD, So then it was Lyndon B. Johnson who was president during majority of this time. Also in 1962, Marilyn Monroe died. We also have the height of the civil rights movement still happening, and the Vietnam War is begun and at its height, another war. And Illinois became the first state to decriminalize homosexuality in around 1961, 1962. So we got one down. We got a shit ton more to go. And I know I called this the psychedelic 60s, but the hippie movement didn't really pick up until like the second half of the 1960s. But what was very psychedelic was queer film. So queer film was in its very rebellious avant-garde phase, which helped push the limitations of what could be on film, right? So films being Kenneth Anger, we go with Kenneth Anger again, his second avant-garde film, Scorpio King, which came out with religious subtext and stuff. And then we also have Jack Smith's Flaming Creatures, which was so obscene and controversial that you would have been arrested just for watching this film. Even at one point, the New York police got involved with interrupting a screening of it. And those of you who may be asking, what's in this film? What's so crazy about this film? And mind you, please do not underestimate avant-garde films, okay? They are the trippiest things ever. However, within this film, right, Flaming Creatures, what it consists of is a lipstick commercial, an orgy, and an earthquake, all in a span of 42 minutes. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's other things in there, but that's pretty much the key elements of what was like the most controversial stuff. Andy Warhol also came out with his own film titled Blowjob, and it's a silent film directed by Andy Warhol. It doesn't star Andy Warhol. I know a lot of us are confused on that, but it stars Devarin Bookwalter as the main actor here. And this still has been debated amongst the peoples. Is this person performing, or is he really actually receiving The fellatio is because it's literally just fixed on his face. It's just fixed on DeVaren's face, and it's not going anywhere else. You do not see anything on the top, bottom, left, right. You don't see anything anywhere. You just see his face, his reaction, and his expressions. It's an important film, right? Because it questions one's own personal voyeurism, right? We get to see DeVaren going through these emotions like ecstasy and like boredom, maybe detachment. And, it's just, again, it raises the question, is he receiving it for real, or is he acting, because actors. So these films together have really helped push the boundaries of how we enjoy films today, how we see them, what can be allowed on film, even with how experimental or even controversial your films can go. And as we go through the 1960s, we see, the first spacewalk, the Voting Rights Act. A lot of assassinations have happened in this era, which is crazy. But, we have Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert Kennedy, all assassinated. The Apollo 11 lands on the moon, and, Woodstock happened, all of that famous music festival. Oh, also, the decline of HWAC was happening all throughout the 60s. Then HWAC decided to rename themselves the House Committee on Internal Security or whatever. We'll dive more into HWAC in another video. Also, Judy Garland died in 1969, June 22, 1969. The Stonewall riots happened. So the police raided the Stonewall Inn a few times, right? To, just like arrest gay and queer people who got there, right? To exist in a place, right? And recall now, there are still laws in place that banned queer and gay people from the public eye, okay? And the public eye was not fond of gay and queer people, let alone black people, right? So this was a bar ran by a family mafia who would have this like back and forth with the police, right? They just had this rebuttal and rebuttal all the time with the police, and as this bar was ran by the family mafia, the mafia would blackmail the rich Patreons, right? The rich clientele who generally were on the DL. So they would be able to tip off the police, right? In order to, cut costs for not having like a fire exit, running water, to the back of the bar, which, they needed to wash the glasses. And they also had lack of plumbing. There was, this is generally, what you would, I know this type of place because I attend places like this, and this is a BYOB type of a bar. So you have to bring your own beer. And because this was a BYOB type of a bar, they didn't need a liquor license now. And from the research that I've done, it seems that the mafia, when they had this back and forth with the police, they literally would just tip each other off. So when the police tipped the mafia, they would be able to arrest the people inside, right? From whatever it was that they were doing. And, when the mafia tipped off the police wouldn't give them a ticket because of the lack of structure that they had in the back or whatever the fuck. Not structure, how can I say? The lack of plumbing and stuff like that. The stuff that I listed before, but also on top of that, to hide the rich clientele or, hide the other illegal activities that could be happening inside of this bar. So that's what the type of relationship they had with the police. So even in these spaces where this is supposed to be our space, it's still not even that safe, right? It's still not a safe place for people to gather and do the stuff that they want to do, right? So after one raid on June 28th, 1969, right? Enough was enough. Rather than scurrying and hiding, people hung outside the bar. And as the night continued, people became more agitated. And people, getting manhandled by the police pretty aggressively at that. And apparently at one point, an officer hit a lesbian over the head as he forced her into the van. She shouted onto onlookers to act, and as you know, people started to act, and they were throwing coins, bottles, cobblestones, and other objects to the police. And in a matter of minutes, a full-blown riot happens. They attempted to, burn down the Stonewall Inn from the research I've been doing. Please correct me if I'm wrong, right? So the fire department and a riot squad eventually were able to like douse the flames. And so protests continued, sometimes involving thousands of people in the area for 5 more days. So this is what people would say would be the first pride, right? This is the first pride. It was a rebellion. It was a pushback of the harassment. As we come around to the 70s, right, where then this is the introduction of, you know, the rebellion, right? I'm gonna call it just the rebellion, the queer rebellion, the queer liberation movement is just uprising, and it's just the volcanic eruption, the smoke, it is coming out. You know, there is sparks, there's some rocks coming out of the volcano, but it hasn't erupted yet. This is what is happening, right? It hasn't, the lava hasn't, you know, exploded out of the fucking volcano yet, right? But it's just the activity, the earthquakingness, the rupture, it is happening, right? So around the 70s, we literally start seeing more queer visibility and how we want it to be, right? And being very unapologetic, because we haven't been unapologetic this entire time. So then we start seeing the subcultures from the Beat Generation just come together, you know, like disco, punk, goth, you know, whatever it is. Everyone's just coming together for stopping the harassment, really. I'm really excited to get into the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. These are like some of my favorite eras to talk about when it comes to queer film and queer history. But until then, right, make sure you guys follow, like, and comment down what is your favorite avant-garde film. And I will see you all when I talk about queer film history of the 1970s. Hey everyone, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching my video. These videos are going to start to become a little bit longer because we're going to start going more into depth of really placing these films in historical context, really. I hope it's not too annoying that the videos are a little bit longer. I hope y'all enjoy more of a longer form content. On top of, you know, learning something. That's really what these videos are trying to get down to. And I apologize for not uploading, you know, as frequently, but because you know, I uploaded the 50s and the 60s on the same day, you know, just so you don't have to wait when you watch the 50s videos, and then, you know, you can just go right into the 60s, but you will have to wait for the 70s and the 80s because I have to put all that together. So yeah,